Infertility impacted my mental health in ways that, to this day, it changed me because I never thought I wouldn't be able to have a child. And then accepting that it may never happen was hard. Month after month of disappointment for years. That's a lot to deal with. And then, it's crazy because when I had my son, the entire time I was pregnant, I just couldn't accept that I was pregnant. I felt the baby, I saw him, I was hyper monitored the entire time. Yeah, the mental was straining. I kept waiting for something to be wrong. And I really could not accept that I was pregnant and that there was a baby. The first thing I thought, and I ended up having a C-section, first thing I thought when the doctor said baby's out was, wow, there was really a baby in there. Like, that was my first thought. And that was a real thought and feeling. And I wonder, now again, how that kind of impacted the baby and, his and my relationship now as far as bonding goes, because, I just didn't have that bonding with him while he was on the inside because I just thought it was going to be taken away and I was scared to hold on.
Giving birth to my son, I had my plan. I decided, okay, I want to go the route of having a midwife, right? Because I just did my research, didn't have great experiences with doctors. Going in, I had my plan, and when I got into the delivery room, they said, hey, you're getting a C-section. They didn't once speak to me, they didn't consult me, they just kind of came in and said, hey, this is what it is. And looking back on it, if I was a white woman, would the situation have been different? And I think absolutely. I think they may have assumed I didn't know enough about what I was going through, about the situation, so they just decided to make the call for me.
Each time I went to the hospital when I had a miscarriage, because I've come to the point now where it happens almost as a common stance, so I don't always go. One time I miscarried in the bathroom of the emergency room. The second time, it was just almost like a routine procedure. The nurse came in and started talking as if I knew, and nobody ever told me, for sure that I had a miscarriage. The doctor came in a little bit later and they looked at each other and realized what happened, but it was just kind of, okay, well, now let's get her out. I only say that is because being a Black woman, because I talk to other women who have not had that experience and have very, very different experiences. So the fact that it's not even close, makes me wonder why.
And when I turned 30, I went to an urgent care center for an unrelated issue, and they were doing an abdominal assessment on me, and they touched my lower abdomen, and they said that you should probably follow up with your OBGYN. Has anybody ever said the word fibroids to you? And I was like, it's the first time I've heard about this. So I followed up with my OBGYN a few weeks later, and to find that I had 2 very large fibroids in my uterus. And so naturally, very scared at this moment. And it is something that affects about 50 to 80% of Black women. We're more genetically predisposed to having fibroids, and the causes of it is still a little bit unknown, but it really had me, in the first time in my adult life, really having to deal with multiple different providers to really figure out what is the best option for me, because I was 30, I'm married, but I haven't had any kids yet, and I want to have kids. So, a hysterectomy was not an option for me, even though it was offered to me by the first person I saw. So that was a hard thing to take. But eventually I was able to find a surgeon who believed that although my 2 fibroids were very large, that he could still do it minimally invasive, one of the best in the country. 2 years later, I'm actually expecting a little one now, so I'm super grateful.
An advocate, especially an advocate for fertility, would make sure that you're heard, and not just make sure you're heard because of who you're in the room with. So I have a story about my fertility journey just in general. When I was first seeking answers because I wasn't getting pregnant after I had gotten married, I talked to my doctor, and my doctor referred me to a GYN. I had went to the same GYN that did my surgery when I was 19. I had a tumor on my ovary. When I went to that doctor, I had told her that I was having some concerns that maybe my tubes were blocked because of the surgery that she did on me. She told me that there was nothing to worry about. That was probably the last test that she would run, and that it wasn't a concern of hers at all. So she ordered a couple of more tests. My husband, who's a white man, was in the car waiting. He decided to come into the appointment with me just because I had more tests to run. Once he came into the room with me, she decided to refer me to Shady Grove Fertility. Once I was referred to Shady Grove Fertility, one of the first tests that they did was to see if my tubes were blocked. My tubes were in fact blocked. So had my white husband not been with me, would I have gotten that same care? Would I have even known right now that my tubes were blocked and gone to the next step? So just having someone who actually listened to me and heard me in the first place, I wouldn't even have had to go through that. In the moment, it made me feel small. It made me feel like I'm not listened to unless I have a white person next to me. It just makes you scared. It makes me scared for my sister who's about to have her baby. And, you know, we're going to be in the room with her. And are these doctors going to listen? Are they going to take her serious? So it definitely makes me alarmed.